If I can have your attention here in the Marcy Scott Media Center, we will continue on with our Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series media availability, joined now by 7-time champion Jimmie Johnson, driver, the number 48 Lowe's Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. Running a little behind this morning, I understand, heading into the media center. Good to be back at Atlanta, though, and fully charged and ready to take on the weekend where you're the defending race winner.
Yeah, definitely excited to be at this racetrack. Unfortunately, I misread my schedule this morning, and I was 15 minutes off on the time. I thought my media session was 11:30, and that's when I was supposed to be at the truck. So I apologize for having to shift things. But you know, this track is so fun and so interesting and so challenging. I hate that it's our last run on this this asphalt. But you know, the practice session didn't disappoint. It still threw plenty of challenges at the teams and certainly ours. And you know, we're learning as we go here with this new package. Start of a new season, ready to go collect some points and get some wins.
Good deal. Let's open the floor up to questions. We'll start with Reed, and we'll go to Caleb, and then to Mark, and then to Bob.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. You mentioned the repave. Junior tweeted yesterday that maybe you guys should have some sort of memorial after this race for the old pavement. Do you share that sentiment?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think, and we all appreciate tracks with so much character, and to have the bad news that 2 of the tracks with the most character are going to be repaved this year, I think shocked and upset a lot of us. I mean, we get it, we understand, but it's just going to take a long time for the track to get back to this condition. I don't think Darlington's really even back to where it once was and the challenges that it poses the team. So you know, it's got to happen at some point, and I'm sure generations before me, drivers were bummed when tracks were resurfaced then too, and it's just part of racing.
Okay, we'll go to Caleb, then to Mark, Bob, Nate, and then Claire.
Caleb Whistler, Speedway Digest. With the new tire rule going into effect this weekend, how are you going to approach qualifying in order to conserve those tires for the opening couple laps of Sunday's race?
Yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see how it goes. I mean, we're eternally optimistic and always think that we have a shot at the pole. So, you know, if you don't think that you know, maybe in the final round that you have a shot at the pole, you can choose to just sit and save a lap on your tires. Might be worth it at a track with so much wear like this. I doubt that'll happen. You know, the competitor in all of us is going to kick in, and we're all going to think we can make an adjustment and go out and adjust the car. But it does put us, especially at a track like this one, put us in a position where we have to be conservative with our tire allotment and how we use them, how many laps we put on every set that we can take to the race.
Go next to Mark.
Mark Garrow, PRN. Jimmy, just talk about the fact Hendrick Motorsports going after 4th straight in here. You're looking for your and just talk about that kind of a role that you have here.
Yeah, it's been a great track for me, really. When I look back over my career and when I think of Hendrick related race cars and success from Nadu running well here. Jeff's obviously always been amazing here. Kane, it's been a good track for Junior over the years. So it's a good track for all of us. I can say the last 2 races we won here, we didn't really get our stuff situated until late in the going and been able to come out on top. So just because you might have a slow Friday or a slow start to the race, I don't think you can count anybody out. We have a lot of chances to work on the car and can make stuff happen here, which is really neat.
Okay, we'll go to Bob, then to Nate, and then to Claire, and then over to Mike.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. The spoiler is a little bit different than what you raced at Michigan and Kentucky last year as far as the length of it. Do you notice it a whole lot, and how does it change things?
Gosh, it's been so long since I've felt that other configuration, and I guess I had a chance to test in Kansas with this downforce package, but the Kansas asphalt's pretty new and a lot of grip. At that point in time, I couldn't feel a difference, and we still ran the same speeds. Today, though, I've had a lot of loose, and I'm sure that smaller spoiler has something to do with it in our setup. But until we really get into side drafting and trying to free people up from behind them or alongside of their quarter panel, I don't know if I have a good read on it yet.
Go to Nate, Claire, and then to Mike.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Jimmy, I know you didn't have to wait as long for your first win, so maybe you can't relate quite as well. But when you see what Chase has gone through and having Daytona kind of slip through his hands again, Any advice you can offer him on how to deal with it, or I mean, is it? And well, I guess what's it like internally to see him have these things just keep slipping away on what would seem to be circumstances out of his control?
Watching, I just keep telling him, man, you can't change what you're doing. You're doing such a great job. He's learned so quick, such talent that in my heart and from watching from the outside, I know it's going to happen. We all know it's going to happen. And when he starts winning, he's not going to stop winning. I would have to assume in his shoes it's a little bit different. I know from my own experience, and granted I did win early, but I had a few championship opportunities slip away before we won one. And I just kept telling myself, how many of these am I going to waste away? These opportunities don't show up all the time. So I'm pretty confident that that's been through his mind. But hopefully he's also telling himself, and I know that I'm telling him, but hopefully he's telling himself, man, I'm young, I've got a lot of racing left, and I mean, he's really doing the right things. Sometimes you're just unlucky, and eventually that luck will come around. He just has such a good sense of the race and adjustments that he needs for the race. His racing savvy is, I guess, maybe a way to generalize that. To watch him grow over the course of the weekend in Daytona and understand the draft and the strengths that his car had, he started to do things in the draft that nobody else was even thinking about and trying and making passes work that way. So it's just an instinctive thing inside of him, that racing savvy that you can't teach somebody. They're born with it or not. You can learn to be courageous. You can learn to go run one fast lap. You can teach yourself those things, but that in-race stuff, you're really kind of born with that, and he has that.
Go next to Claire, then to Mike, and then over to Reed.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. I was talking to NASCAR today, and they say with a smile on their faces, they saw in practice you guys were sliding around a little bit. Do you smile about that? And, how do you adapt coming to Atlanta, knowing that you like a loose race car, but how much looser is it, and how do you adapt?
Yeah, I love sliding around, especially when you're at the top of the board doing that. Sliding around on 20th isn't any fun, so although, there was a couple cool slides, and it's fun to be on the edge in your race car. We want to be at the top of the sheet, and we weren't there today. Still some more, on track today that we can sort stuff out. But I think we all appreciate watching how hard the drivers have to work on tracks like Atlanta. And I guess that leads to some of the sadness knowing that this is our last race on this asphalt. Same with Texas. Texas is going to be different. So we'll enjoy it tonight, or not tonight, but this weekend. Maybe have that memorial service Dale Jr.'s talking about, and come back and go really fast next year.
Okay, we're going to go to Mike, then to Reed, then over to Kenny, and then up here to Chase.
Mike Embry, USA Today. What's the bigger challenge here this weekend? Dealing with the tires going away and trying to figure what laps you're messing with there, and the new package. Is there, or is it a mix of the two kind of?
Our conversations really haven't been package related with the car. It's really been about tire allotment. If there's a lot of cautions, how you can run out of tires quickly and be in a bind. So I think most of us are concerned about tires than the lower aero package right now. I know we are.
I'm Reed Spencer, NASCAR Wire Service. Last week at Daytona, the duels were relatively speaking incident-free. The Daytona 500, on the other hand, was extremely wild. From your point of view, what do you think were the primary factors that made that radical difference between the races?
I feel like the rules package has a lot to do with it, and I don't know how we get around it, because a few rules packages ago, the speeds were a little bit higher, cars were lifting off sooner. They've also changed the way the air comes out from the back of the race car, and as you approach somebody's bumper, it actually slows the car in front of you dramatically, where we used to be able to push them away. So now it slows that car and creates a pretty good opportunity to bump draft or slam draft. But the fact that the trailing car slows down the lead car, the cars kind of get stuck together, and you really start hitting that guy in front of you, and they're not going anywhere. So the crash that I was in on the backstretch, I had the one car hitting me from behind, and it's slowing me down, and I can't get away from him to straighten out. He has people hitting him from behind, and it just leads into, you know, a big crash. I feel like a few generations ago, as you got close to somebody, you really pushed them away. There was more energy to create passes as a result, and you didn't need to hit each other as much. But that configuration led to tandem drafting, and it led to too high a speed. So I guess through explaining a long-winded situation, I don't know how we get away from it, but I wish we could have a bigger plate. You know, something just to allow the cars to have a bit more energy on their own, so you don't have to rely on the bumping to create something to happen.
We're going to go to your right to Kenny and then over to Chase to wrap up.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. Jimmie, you talked about, you've been asked about tire management and for qualifying and wanting to go for it and yeah, hopefully get a shot at the pole and everything. Based on your practice out there earlier today, do you feel like you have a legitimate shot at making it to the third round? And
Not so
getting the
much.
pole?
Not so much, but as a driver and with Chad Canals as your crew chief, you know, you've got to let that stuff roll off your shoulders and climb in the car and pull them tight and think you can hit it. That's one thing that I have learned through experience is, sure, you might be off in a session, but you let your team make adjustments and work on things they can, and then call on your teammates and the other notes that you can learn from. Stuff can happen. I think last year the best example for me was New Hampshire. We won the pole. We were nowhere near the pole in practice and ended up getting the pole. So it can happen. The odds are low, but I'm going to get in there hoping that I nail that perfect lap.
You have to have a lot of faith in the changes that your crew chief is going to make.
Yeah. Faith and then also experience helps. You know, the crew chief's version of, you know, I freed the car up a little bit. Until you understand what he means by a little bit, it might be way different on your scale. Once you get some history with one another, you understand, you know, it's going to be a little free. You start to believe that, and then when he looks at you and says, buddy, you know, just be on your toes, you know, you start learning that scale.
Okay, well, go to Chase, and then we'll wrap up with Paul.
Chase Willem, FoxSports.com. Jimmie, all this talk about the memorial service for the old pavement reminds me of 2011, the showdown with Jeff Gordon. Obviously not the result you exactly wanted. Just reflect back on that day, and does that stick out to you as one of the more fun races that you've ever had throughout your Cup career?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while, so I'm trying to remember exactly all that went on. I know we had a race here where we traded the lead back and forth a bunch of times. That's right. Man, you just want to race for the win. Sure, you want to come out on top, but to be picked by Jeff and a guy that I looked up to and idolized as a young driver, and to have a few duels with him, especially that one. You know, the other one that comes to mind is at Martinsville, and I came out on top, so that's probably why it's more vivid in my mind. You know, that's what you want to do. You know, you want to race against the best, and if you lose to somebody, you want to be the best. So, you know, I can think of many cool final laps here. I've come out on top against Mark Martin, Tony Stewart. There was one I didn't end up winning the race, but I ended up second behind Carl Edwards. It really helped us in the championship battle in the fall. You know, these old tracks with this much character in them really put on some good finishes. Yeah.
Go next to Paul.
Paul DeBerry from Associated Press. Kind of totally out of left field here, Jimmie. Your thoughts. A guy like Derek Cope, a Daytona 500 winner, out here still plugging away. At 58, I guess this will be his first Cup race in about a decade. I guess you probably can't see yourself doing this, I'm guessing, at 58. But just your thoughts on him still out here competing.
You never know. I mean, you can't take the racer out of us. I think Mark Martin tried to retire 6 or 7 times before he finally figured out how to do it. So, you know, I have a great deal of respect for anyone in this industry. And, you know, we all find our way into this garage area as a crew member or a driver because you love it. And we all sacrifice so much to be here for it. So it doesn't surprise me that there's a long span from Derek's last start till now. Doesn't surprise me that he's out there. And I'm sure he's probably got the biggest smile in any helmet that's on the racetrack. You know, it's just because of the passion he has for the sport.
7-time. Before I let you go, you got to tell me about those shoes there. There's some pretty good shoes you got going on.
I do. We're supporting Chase Elliott's launch for his foundation, and I have a pair of shoes that have been designed through his foundation. Camping Games on this side. I know I have a horse over here, which my daughters are going to be really, really happy to see. But all 4 Hendrick drivers have it on, and we're trying to support Chase in his efforts to launch the Chase Elliott Foundation.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for taking the time to join us today, and best of luck this weekend.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.